We're so excited to be here this afternoon to share with you our passion around street art. When we tell people about our passion, they often say, "Isn't that graffiti? Isn't that vandalism?" And I think 10 years ago, Marc and I would have said the same thing to someone else. However, after September 11th, we were forced to spend a lot of time walking around our neighborhood of Soho because you couldn't drive. And we noticed one day a small piece of art on the street. And then 10 feet away, we noticed another piece, and then another piece. And we realized that our entire neighborhood was alive and flourishing with art, that for the last 5 years we had never even noticed. It was like picking up a manhole cover and discovering an entire city right beneath our feet.
What's been so wonderful for us is to, over the years, get to know these artists who are anonymous, risking arrest for doing unauthorized acts, to get to know their stories, and then to communicate those stories back out to the rest of the world through the internet and through other forums. And there's been three key themes that have kind of emerged for Sara and I that really motivate us. One is site-specific work. So an artist will see a very specific place walking down a street and have an idea. What if I did that in that space? And that's why it can't be commissioned, because they're looking at the city as a playground in their own way. And what happens is the dialogue starts to form between the artists, the city, the streets, the walls, and the viewer who happens to find it. The second thing is that most people don't realize that street art is most often found in neglected places. This is not about going to a pristine building in the middle of town and defacing it. It's about reactivating dormant locations. That factory that was never cleaned, that building that has been abandoned, and adding creativity back into the city when that creativity was lost because of economic times. The last thing that we see is this proliferation of advertising in our urban environments, the repetition of that advertising, and the mundaneness that one finds has led to the need for artists to make sure that these places are livable, that they're humanizing, that there's a balance between the advertiser, who has the ability to buy the space, and the city and the artist, who has the desire and the need to take it. So in terms of the wisdom of play, I don't think there's a better artist to start with than Invader. This photograph is Varanasi, and I don't know if you can see, but very simply in here are tiles, and those tiles have been placed in a shape so that it creates a Space Invader character. And what Invader does, and he's now done it over 50 cities, he's just put up his 1,000th piece in Paris alone, is he invades a town, he invades that city. And for him, it's a game. For him, it's a challenge. So he gives himself points on three criteria. One is the location. The risk that it takes to put up the piece is a certain amount of points. The second is the size. How big was it? And the third is the quality of the tiles themselves. And then, after he finishes the invasion, and it could be anywhere from 20 to 25 pieces, here's the Brooklyn Bridge, a pretty difficult place, he then maps it. So, and the mapping, which he uses now a GPS system, is as important as everything else. And he produces the maps of the cities for people to buy on his website. So here's an example of one. It's his invasion of Kathmandu. And what's interesting here is that if you've been to Kathmandu, you know that, that there's no street names. And so he's using a Google map and making these placements of where his tiles can be found. And if you've traveled the world and you've gone to some of the major cities, then surely you've come across these tiles. And what's been wonderful for us is to then learn the depth and the breadth of what's in the artist's mind as he looks at the city in a very unique way.
So not all artists are so literal as Invader. This artist, his name is Ox. He's also in France. And he's taking a very typical billboard along a highway that people are probably driving by every day of the week. And what's interesting is if they happen to notice that the billboard's been adjusted, which I would say a very few do, they may not notice that his work is actually an abstract painting, and that he's going beyond that and making it site-specific by tapping into the building behind him. So he's grabbing the colors and the shapes from the buildings behind to create the billboard. The same thing here with the green structure that surrounds his piece. And I love the fact that the ad is actually showing through and contributing to the piece. And then with these, red cylinders, so much fun. And again, you just have to look up from your drive to notice these things.
One of the challenges for a street artist who's working with an ephemeral piece, right? You don't know if it's going to stay up for an hour, a day, a month. So the artist is trying to think through, well, how long can I keep this piece up without it coming down? So one of our favorite artists is Gecko, an artist in Toulouse, France, who Gecko comes from. He created this character, and he was challenging himself, how do I make sure that this stays for a while? And so what he started to do was he realized the dynamic that was at play with light boxes for advertising in the cities that he was traveling to. And he realized that in the daytime, obviously there's no light there's no light to light up the ad, so it has a certain characteristic. But once the sun goes down, the light comes on and the ad is illuminated. So what he did was he started to take out the ads, go back to his studio, and rework them so that in the daytime they were the regular ad. But in the evening, what would happen was, as the light would go on, they would transform. So here's one where the skeleton of that model starts to come through. Here's another one where you can see the before and after. He's done them also with tattoos where he's added them. And so with this type of work, it can be months until somebody realizes, hey, there's something weird there. Is that the ad or is it not the ad? And so for him, it was a challenge. It was a game to keep the pieces up for as long as he could. And it's still the motivation of Gecko. In another way, how do you keep things up? Sometimes it's just because people don't look around. They don't look up. They don't look down. They're so focused on going to the subway or to the shop that they don't realize some of the most simple, basic things. So the Decapitator is an artist from East London who literally does just that. He decapitates things. So what he will do is rework an ad, figure out through Photoshop and things kind of the placements, the size, and then go back and decapitate these ads. And what's fun about this in a way, it's pretty graphic, but what's fun is it's a game because those who happen to see it have this little special thing now. They have I think this little trinket of fun that most people literally don't see. And something like this could stay up for weeks without anybody noticing that the artist has remixed it and reworked it.
So, because paper advertising is becoming outdated, the advertisers have come up with a new way of advertising, which is the digital billboard. And they certainly have taken over New York City. And the Transit Authority has found a great way to make money is to put up these digital billboards. And they're really invasive, and the ad keeps changing over time. And a bunch of artists, and one artist in particular, Jason Epping, created what's called the Pixelator. It's a very simple project with clear cellophane paper and some masking tape. And in 2 minutes, you can walk into Union Square in New York City and create a piece of art out of a piece of advertising. And as the ad changes behind it, it's a mosaic and it lights up and it changes. What's wonderful about this is it's a DIY project. So all of you can go online and learn how to do it yourself and play with your own city.
Gee Lee. So what we started to learn from a lot of these artists is that it's really connected, their work is connected to the performance of putting up the piece. So G is an artist who we've got to know over the years, and this is one of our favorite projects from G. It's called the Bubble Project. And G, as you can see, dressed up here as the worm. Often he'll be dressed up as Elvis or a wizard or different people. What he's doing is actually fairly simple. He's creating empty speech bubbles and bubbling, that's he's created his own verb, bubbling these ads and placing just the blank ads. But what people don't know is that what he wants to do is to see what you will write inside the ads. And so a city will be bubbled, and over the next few days, people will write different comments in them. And what happens is absolutely amazing. Some are very political, some are very funny, some are satirical or commentary on the government. And then what G will do is he'll go back and he'll photograph that dynamic between the ad. And what really this brings up is what's working here, right? Is G's bubbles and what the city has put back in making the ads more interesting? Do you now notice them because there's so much repetition of that ad without the bubble? Is it negating the power of what the ad was trying to sell you? Is it enhancing it? And these are the games, if you will, and the projects that these artists do to really start to say, well, hold on a second, what's happening here in the city? And G's bubble project is a great articulation of that.
And what G's project is so interesting is that it's interactive. So you as a participant, if you notice the bubble, can play along with that. Our next artist is doing the same thing. Matt Greenwood is from Toronto. His project is called Take Picture, Don't Steal. And he's hung up lots of disposable cameras all over the city and put this note on them. And what he found is over time, people were going and taking photos. And he would go back and capture the cameras and come up. He has a whole, a website full of different images that people took of themselves. His favorites are one of just a pregnant belly. Another woman took a photo of her in her wedding dress. He said one day when he went up to retrieve a camera, some guy went running up to him and said, "Don't ruin the project, don't ruin the project." And he said the community was acting on behalf to support his project that he had put out there in a wonderful way, again, for the world to engage, because it's a DIY project. Everyone now around the world is going up and putting up their own disposable cameras. Another really interesting artist is Bumblebee. He's working out of LA, and he's taking abandoned telephone booths and saying, these are just sitting around our cities, what can we do with them? And as he started to think, he also has a passion for bees. And bees are starting to lose their migration routes, supposedly due to cell phone signals, or that's one of the theories. So the telephone booths are disappearing, the bees are losing their way, so he started to put honeycombs back into the cell phone booths as a reminder to all of us the social and economic and agricultural implications of technology. He took this a step further when he started focusing on newspaper boxes, another disappearing medium, and he created what he calls a time-lapse story. So he pulled the boxes out, he created these dioramas, put them back around the city and created a map, and you can go and follow along, and it's an entire story called How Things Came to Be.
So, Los Angeles. So, yeah, absolutely, exactly, right? So this is Total Crisis Panic Button, a project by Jason Epic and Tyler Menzel. And what's going on here is how many people, A, walk in LA, and B, really need to be told how to cross the street. I mean, we kind of understand how it all works. So what this project is about is to replace these things that we don't care about anymore, that we see, with better and more information and with better graphics. And again, the gameplay here is very interesting, where the artists won't say that these things are out there in the city, won't advertise it on the web or tell people about it. We'll just let this be discovered. And what happens now with people with their cell phones have cameras is that eventually it'll be discovered and a photograph will be taken of it, and it'll then go online. And then the gameplay continues because people start to share things. Have you seen this? Oh, is there another one? Oh, another one just went up. So there's this whole dialogue that happens when you connect the internet with the city because of the dialogue and the conversation that starts to happen. Another one is Dan Witz. So again, very simple. Dan is playing with those common signs that you see every day and is really turning the city into a playground, turning it into this surrealistic city that we all want to live in. And Dan is an artist who does many different projects, but many are very similar to this.
This is a piece by Trusto Corp, and it's along the same lines. This artist or artists, we're not sure, are saying there's a lot of signs out there that we trust and have a lot of authority, but we get used to them, and there's an opportunity to have fun with them at the same time. So this one's down in Wall Street. Some of these are fun. I love this one. This is in the Kmart in Astor Place. The bankos eat the rich. And on the side of the box is all the banks and how much money they were loaned by the US government as the ingredients. And this is a map. So again, you can go online and walk around the city and follow that path.
So,
So Dan Witz is, we're back to Dan because he has some other interesting projects. He has a project every summer, and this is called In Plain View, What the F? Because he puts these, if you can believe it, in airports, bus stations. I don't know how after September 11th he gets in there, but the whole point is you're walking by, and he says probably less than 1% of the passersby see his piece, but when they do, they go, what the F? Is that what I think it is? And the same thing here.
So 2007, Damien Hirst does a show in the White Cube Gallery in London. He creates a diamond-encrusted skull, the most expensive piece of art ever created. And Laura Keeble, an artist, pulls a prank, a very, very popular one. What she does is she goes and buys a very cheap plaster skull, goes and buys some cheap Swarovski, some crystals, makes the skull exactly like the others, went and saw how the box was in the gallery, and on the last day decides that she's going to pull the ultimate prank. And so this is a photograph. I don't know if you could see. Here's the Damien Hirst exhibition. They're packing up. The exhibition is closed. And if you could see in the trash is Damien Hirst's $100 million skull, which is actually Laura's prank.
So we love pranks, and pranks can also be really serious. In Astoria, for over 20 years, there was an area called Scum River. And it was a very high-trafficked place that had a leaking pipe that froze over in the winter. It was really dangerous in the winter and really disgusting in the summer. So poster child and Jason Epping came together to create the Astoria Scum River Bridge. They were sick of walking across the river. And they built the bridge entirely out of recycled materials, put it up, people could walk over the bridge. What's so amazing is after 20 years, literally 30 days after that bridge went up, Amtrak and the city of New York came in and in 2 days had fixed Scum River, and the bridge was gone back into recycling, and the river was gone.
And finally, one of our favorite stories. One day over dinner, we were talking about street art, and a woman who we didn't know pulls out her cell phone, and she says, I want to show you a piece of street. I think it's street art. I saw it yesterday, and I took this photograph, and this was the photograph. And what it was some trash bags on a grate in New York City. And then she showed us the second photograph, and the second photograph showed that when the subway car went under the grates, the air pushed those trash bags up into this animal. And we put it on our website, and a couple days go by, and we got an email. My name is Joshua Allen Harris. I'm a student at SVA. I don't know what your website is. I don't know what street art is, but I did that. And he then started to make more animals. And what was so wonderful, just a few weeks ago, Josh called us, and he said, I got a great story to tell you. And we said, what? He says, I was just on Sesame Street, because the animals started to take off. And so that's really what this is about. It's not about vandalism. It's really about making cities into playgrounds.
And so our message is simple. Look up, look down, lift up that manhole cover and discover your own world of art that's in your city. And if there isn't one, go ahead and try it yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.